Everyone. I extend a warm welcome to all of you for choosing to connect with positivity, taking out your valuable time, and joining us today. I extend my gratitude to all the delegates joining in from different parts of the world and all our corporate friends and employees and partners. Thank you so much for showing your interest to join in this space where we hold a very raging and relevant topic and narrative on navigating conflicts and communication in relationships. So, as we begin, I would quickly like to take this opportunity to introduce positivity very humbly to all of you. It's a nascent and growing mental health startup. We are headquartered in Singapore. Our team is operational from India. We are growing slowly towards building a quality platform where we bring in services in both B2B and D2C services. And looking forward to you all to join us in this journey. As we begin the webinar, I would like to ensure that all of you participate and connect with our speakers today. As we engage more and more, the learning becomes more fun. It's not like a nerdy discussion and classroom session. We want it to be more insightful and engaging. So whenever there's a poll, whenever our speakers are asking anything, just feel free to pitch in. There's no right or wrong answer. Feel free to think with us and have a conversation which is extremely fruitful for all of us. Um, Moving on to showing this screen to all of you. It's a humble request from our team that if you can and if you want to scan this and join us on this journey of your mental health care. If you just want to visit the website and take a look and go through our services, it would be great honor to be able to connect with each one of you. Now, as I talk about the B2B sector, where we are partnering up with corporates to provide mental health care and solutions to them, to their employees, Positivity offers you an array of services which ensures employee well-being. And I invite my colleague, Ms. Indira Deshpande, to be able to take you through this very quickly so that all the corporate delegates attending us today can be aware of these and let us know if we can take this conversation forward. Indira, over to you.
Hello, thank you so much, Shatadeepa. Okay, let me start introducing myself. Hi, good evening, all. I am Indira Deshpande. I'm working as an account executive at Positivity. So, let me start with something that we face on daily basis. So, it's a Monday morning, an email lands in your inbox saying 5 employees have resigned. It becomes so bumming, not because you didn't care, but because you didn't see it coming. That's the hardest part of HR today. You're expected to support mental well being, but you're often asked to act without visibility, without data, and sometimes without time. Now, here's the truth that we have seen across organizations. Most mental health challenges don't appear suddenly. They build quietly inside teams long before HR is alerted. That is why the story usually breaks down. Support exists, but it's reactive. Programs are rolled out, but the adaptation is low. And leadership asks the same question every year: is this actually working? At Positivity, we decided to change where the story begins. Instead of starting with solutions, we start with understanding. That is why we work with HR leaders on a whole organization mental health assessment, a confidential, therapist led annual study that gives you something very rare, that is clarity. Clarity on where the stress is concentrated, clarity on where the burnout risks before they escalate, and clarity on what kind of support you people actually need. No guesses, no assumptions. Once you have that insight, everything else becomes intentional, whether it is manager support, therapy access, workshop, or crisis support. This assessment is just one pillar of our Positivity 360 ecosystem, which supports employee across their entire journey, from entry to high pressure moments. Positivity 360 includes 10 thoughtfully designed services addressing mental well being across the entire employee life cycle, which are new hire psychometric testing, year one evaluation, whole organization mental health assessment, mental health workshop, one on one online therapy, therapy at work, therapy at home, group therapy, 24/7 helpline, and gift a session. You can see all these offerings on the screen right now. And we also have shared the link to our Positivity 360 suite in the chat box for you to explore at your convenience. Thank you for your time and attention. And with that, Shatadeepa, over to you.
Thank you so much, Indira. And as we move on with that introduction, I would like all of you to meet our panelists today. Starting with myself, I would like to introduce myself. I am Shatadeepa. I am the therapy lead and ops executive at Positivity. I have an experience of 8 years. I work with adult clients and population, and currently exploring the product space with Positivity. I see a hand going up. Is there a question? Oh, no. Okay, all right. And moving on to our speakers for today, I am very glad that I could invite Ms. Megha Sharma and Mr. Mario Briganza for being the panelists for gracing our session today. Ms. Megha Sharma is an RCI recognized clinical psychologist. She holds an experience of 6 years, works with children and adults, is specialized in cognitive behavioral therapies and relaxation techniques. She has worked with various recognized brands like Max Hospital, Mebo Care, and currently working with Spring Health as well. Thank you, Megha, for joining us and gracing us with your presence.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our another guest today is Mr. Mario Braganza. Where do I begin about Mario? He has so many accolades to add to his name. So he is an HRM leader, ambassador, and he is having an experience of 28 years, and he is currently heading his team. So glad to have you here, Mario. We are all aware of your other trades and passion. He is also an entrepreneur. He's an author. He MCs. He's a great orator as well. So glad to have you here and looking forward to your enriched experience being shared with all of us today.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I look forward to the session.
All right. So as we jump into the session, we all know that why we are here and what are we talking about. The broad topic here is communication. Now, why is communication important? It's a very simple process, right? It's a process of transmission of information, one party to the other. It can have various names, various languages, but eventually it is one thread that connects us all. We are one species and the only species who can communicate through verbal and categorical languages. It can help us build and it can help us break down also. So words are very important, and it's also saying, right, that words are mightier than swords. So it can be sharp, it can be as sweet as honey. It depends on how we are utilizing them and whether it helps us or it doesn't help us, right? So with that, I would invite Ms. Megha Sharma first to just define how she understands communication and take it from there. Over
Yeah.
to you, Megha.
Thank you so much, Shatadeepa, for that lovely introduction to the whole idea and our the webinar, setting the context, setting the I'll say the vibe of the webinar today. So starting with so first things that I want to tell my audience is that it's not going to be, I'm not going to tell you things that you have not heard before. I'd like to simplify the ideas so well because it is communication is something that we all have been using all our lives, right? So I'll try to bring the significance of communication and conflicts and the ways of resolving conflicts in front here, because psychology and the concepts that we are going to discuss today are very common. We use it here and there, but we probably don't recognize it and the way it needs to be recognized. So therefore, coming back to communication, if we look at our primates, they had a more simpler version of communication, and they, let's say, we all know, we have seen birds calling out during their mating times, etc. So that is how simplified communication started evolving during the like when animals started evolving. And here we are, humans, which who is not the strongest animal on the planet, not the tallest one, not the largest one, not the strongest one, but the one aspect that really helped humans do the things that we are doing today is communication. We created a particular, a particular language center in our brains. Our brains evolved so much because of this one particular tenant, and that is communication. So when I say communication, Satydeepa rightly said that it's a transfer of data, right? We are transferring, let's say, our thoughts, our ideas, our feelings. And one thing for sure is that when I am saying, someone is definitely hearing, even if you choose to ignore me, there's definitely some sort of reciprocation over happening over there. And
Right.
humans have built like this huge, like the kind of way we have evolved and the kind of changes that we have brought is immense. We are talking about crypto, we're talking about artificial intelligence at this point, and it all started because of communication. So this is how basic communication is. Point, please note that when I'm talking about communication, we are all addressing that the both the verbal and the non-verbal facts, right? So if I say something and if you just choose to turn around and walk away, that's also a part of communication. You are communicating something with a very non-verbal way. So every time through the session we are talking about communication, please think of both the types, so both the communication that we'll be thinking about. One last thing before we move on to the next slide or the next part of communication is that, like, I want to take the audience to, or introduce the audience to, four types of communication. And again, this is something that this is not new at all. This is something that we have all heard, experienced. I am just pointing this out to you. First one is aggressive communication. Now, think of an example where you have seen aggressive communication. It is dominating, it is fearful, you don't like it, you feel unsafe when you're the receiver of the communication part, right? So it can be, let's say, a random fight with an auto driver, or like, let's say, your friends or someone you've seen on the road. And how is it, like, it's the, also think of the non-verbal communication, that the person, it's charging, it's more forceful, not very warm, definitely. So one is aggressive type of communication. The other extreme is the passive type of communication, where nothing is communicated. Lot of, like, slouching down non-verbal cues are there. Not speaking so loudly, speaking very, very softly, very toned down, probably very few words coming out. That's a very like passive kind of communication. Whatever I say, it's always accepted, right? That kind of communication. And somewhere in the middle is, there are two types. Okay, one is probably assertive communication and the other one is passive aggressive. I'll give you an example of the passive aggressive first. So let's say, for example, you're expecting someone to do something, and instead of saying no to what you're expecting them to do, they just didn't turn up for it. So let's say you were requesting someone to get something for you, and instead of turning up to work, or let's say a particular function, family function, they just didn't turn up. This is passive aggressive. We've all had examples of such particular, where you're not communicating a no directly, but you're not even charging and saying, no, I'll never do this for you. But you're not doing it, but you're not even taking, you're not even like, communicating about it. Again, not a very we'll look into it, whether it's a good way of communication or not. Finally, the last one is the assertive type of communication, where we are direct and respectful about the other person. Kind of the conversation, most of the conversations that we have in the day is assertive communication, except times when we kind of get passive aggressive. So I think I have an interesting exercise for all of you here. From now on, the next couple of days, try to observe what kind of communication are you following. Are you being passive aggressive? Are you being aggressive? Are you being passive? Or are you being assertive? Okay, so with that said, let's move on to the good type of communication. How do we define the, Shaudadeepa, can we move to this
Yeah.
next slide?
As we move on to the next slide, I would also like to, address this question to Mario, if he has anything to add to defining communication or how he understands communication.
Thank you, Satyadeepa. Well, I do not want to change much about what Megha has already mentioned, but the essence of the workplace, we find, few lines that we don't usually cross, and
Right,
perhaps that's the only difference from a generic one to a workplace. And
right.
because we have the factor of the remuneration and the compensation, sometimes the communication can also go due to different factors. But yes, the types that have been mentioned by Maker is the ones that are already in play.
Absolutely. And I think the way you said that there's always a line that we don't cross, somewhere it makes a little bit more aware. I think if we have ever thought about communication very actively and consciously, it has to be in workplace before writing that email or before approaching my superior. We watch out a little bit. What is my body language? What kind of words are we using? We are putting in a little bit more effort over there, which becomes even more diluted in an informal setting, and the risk of being very frivolous with our words kind of runs over there. So thank you for bringing in that perspective. Megha, you can continue with the science of having a great communication.
All right. So quickly, without making it very boring and monotonous, how can we have good communication skills? Because all of us sitting down here, in our lives, once in our life, like this is something that someone has must have told us sometime that I have good communication skills, right? Or we are trying to we are trying to portray that we have good communication skills. So how do we communicate well? So let's genuinely look at the correct way of communication that works, not just to be put somewhere and to prove and the quantitative part, but the qualitative part. So how can I be a better person in a relationship? Let's look at how exactly the takeaways, the tools to be able to help us navigate through those. First one is active listening. I think the world is in dearth of people who practice
Absolutely. I
active,
completely resonate with you on this, Megha.
right? So what is active listening? What do I mean when I say active listening? Most of the people, now just observe this, most of the people will answer back, not responding. They're not responding to you. They are just telling you something because they want to say something. It doesn't necessarily have to connect to what you have said. Now, that can be a very absurd connection, like that might not happen all the time. But the idea of active listening is listen to what the other person is saying. And you know what will happen when you start to listen to what the other person is saying? Instead of you trying to say something, you'll start becoming curious about the other person. You'll start bringing in question, and once you start bringing in that question, okay, tell me about what you're feeling, tell me about what do you mean by this, or what do you mean when you say this. uh, this is when the communication really takes a turn. I believe this is what makes great leaders, right?
Absolutely.
So active listening is the first step of it, where you're listening to what the person is saying, listen to what words they are using, listen to their silences. That's also where I use, I'm also going to talk about it when I say being present. What do I mean by being present? At that moment when you're having that conversation, observe what is going on around you. How is it, how are their facial expressions? Remember, I mentioned nonverbal cues. How is it, what is their tone of voice, what words are they using, with what context are they talking about? Am I sure of all these things? So these things we can definitely improve a little bit more than we knew until before this webinar about active listening. The second
Think
one is not
what I
personal.
am listening, what I'm hearing, Megha, that when you say that when we are curious, when we are actually listening from a perspective of knowing or trying to understand, it makes us become more genuine rather
Right.
than closing up or becoming defensive, or like you mentioned that, for the sake of replying. The
Right.
moment we keep the intention of, no, I have to come back with a appropriate answer, I think the attention is right on the place, where we are focusing on the speaker, where we are taking away the information and we are joining the conversation rather than just focusing on what I have to come back with.
True, absolutely true. I think to sum it up, I'd say coming from a place of empathic curiosity, like
Yeah,
try to understand what they are trying to say. This can be a big part of becoming a great communicator. Okay, so first part, definitely active listening. Moving on, not personalizing issues. So I think here I'm talking about, let's say let's say that statement, I'm not using a friend, that statement that hurt you.
yeah,
Please understand that most of the times, I'll not say all of the times, but most of the times, it is not about you, but
you.
about something that the other person is going through.
Hmm.
So instead, I mean, I do understand people come to me every day with a lot of hurt, that how did the person do this, and in tears, and this and this. And I understand that it can be very hurtful, and they can go through their emotional journeys because of certain things. But the moment we detach and we look at it from a third person's perspective, we understand that, okay, it is not really about me. So instead of going through all that hurt and, taking so much therapy, can we, and in this point in time, try to not take the whole situation personally and see how it feels? The
Yeah,
third small point is, instead of using I felt this, or I am angry, or, like, instead, the moment I say I feel anger,
that makes a
I,
lot of difference.
yes, it does. Try it yourself. Try it, before you communicate it to the others, try it by your own self. Like, every time you say, I can't do this anymore. No, no, I feel frustrated right now, right? So you externalize the feeling. You don't feel so one with the feeling now. You don't let the feeling or the emotion control you. And you also communicate better in the sense that, okay, this is not who I am. I am not angry. I am feeling anger. It's an emotion.
Yeah, yeah.
It's that I am feeling
And
right
a
now.
lot of times when people are angry, after some time, they are a little embarrassed about it. They're angry on themselves for becoming angry and losing temper. So a lot of times it is turned toward themselves after a while.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Yeah,
this technique of keeping the feeling as a feeling or identifying it as a third entity and not personalizing this as a person can reduce that shame.
yes, too many folds, too many, many folds. I've seen wonders going through while I've been doing my therapies with my clients. So definitely, this is a good place to start with. The last two things that I'd like to say, one is kindness. We can never be kind enough. Try to be kind. Try to
Absolutely.
come from an empathic space and showing acceptance. It is very easy to judge someone. But whereas, contrary, creating that acceptance that someone is feeling a certain way because of the journey that they have had, right? Because of a journey that I am not aware of. Even if we practice active listening at this point in time, like let's say you're having a conversation and you've been actively listening like for 2 hours straight, but still you don't know what the life journey that the person has been through. So the
Yeah.
least that we can do as humans is be
Be
accepting
kind.
and come from a kind space, come from a kind heart. Until and unless that person is trying to threaten you, attack you, and trouble you, there is a lot of room for acceptance and kindness. The moment you feel charged, the moment you think that this person is trying to impact me, then having boundaries is something that is absolutely necessary, and we'll be talking about it towards the end of the session as well. So
Right.
yeah, with this we can start with the good signs of some signs of communication.
Thank you for summing it up so well for all of us. I think we got a lot of vision already. I would like to ask Mario if he has come across any real life situation while handling human resources at his workplace, that a lot of times individuals might get a feedback from their managers or colleagues, which is a lot about the work or maybe the situation per se, but individuals may take it more personally, feel very attacked, and obviously situations get escalated. So, have you experienced or witnessed something like that which you would like to discuss about?
Yeah, sure. For me, it comes at a two-pronged approach from the one who's listening and the one who's being listened to.
Right,
Many a times, because I'm in the chair and I'm the HR person,
right.
I tend to, butt in and give a result right away. But if you're an experienced leader, I would start at the bottom. Do not judge,
Yeah.
empathize, be kind in the present moment, allow the person to say whatever he has to say, and
Mm-hmm.
then, give it a pause and then ask if there's anything more to it, and then perhaps, offer some advice. But again, sometimes people just come to you for you to listen. So you've got
Yeah,
to differentiate. Has he come in for advice or has he come just to vent? So being in
absolutely.
the human resources and the workplace, sometimes there's a two-prong approach to this. Now, that was the leader part. From the
Mm-hmm.
other side, when someone is telling you, they expect you to listen at all costs. So that's why I
Right.
started from the bottom and I went upwards. And this is something that happens on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So to me and my position, I expected over the years that, when I started, I might have been guilty of a few things out here already. But over
Mm-hmm.
the years, now I understand the more you listen, the more you get. And if you listen quietly, there's so much more that you get information, unbiased information, and then you exactly know how to proceed. So, communication, like it has to be, is better being listened to rather than just offering advice right away without judging.
So true. I think the way you gave us a perspective of going bottom to up from a leader's perspective, that was very helpful. So thank you for that. And let's carry on with this flow. Any questions so far? I would like to open the chat for all the participants. Kindly drop in your questions. Even if it's not a question, some thought, some query you want to ask Mario. He has 28 years of experience of being in the work field and seeing so many layers of different relationships. And of course, Megha brings in the clinical side of it. So, great resources, guys. If you want to, ask anything, share anything, please feel free to do that. All right. So, while you all, I hope, drop in your questions and thoughts, we move on to the next segment, which is conflicts. So, if there is communication, the other side of the coin is conflict, because obviously we can't be 100% uh, correct and sound while we are communicating. There are some lapses, some gaps, some misinterpretations happening here and there, and right from a very personal sphere, which is a romantic relationship, to the most formal relationship, which is maybe a workplace. Also, the familial relationships, offspring and parents, everywhere there can be conflicts present. So, the moment there is a difference in opinion, interest, we feel misheard, undervalued, it escalates and become conflicts. So I'm sure Megha and Mario have something great to offer us in this segment. Over to you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Shatudeepa, for so I have a very, very unique perspective to conflicts. And
Mm-hmm.
that is, there are two things for sure about conflicts. One is it's inevitable.
Of
Wherever
course.
you're going, whether it's family, whether it's a couple, whether it's friends, whether it's your, whether, it is your office teams, or you look at the world, you know, together. Tell me, like, point out, take out 1 year and tell me that the world has not been at war, and I'll personally be impressed with humanity. And because it has probably not happened. So every level conflict is happening, and it's very inevitable. And the unique thing is that we have a very negative connotation to conflicts. We don't see it very well. We get very uncomfortable as humans. We get very uncomfortable, like, you know, how Shautudeepa also verbalized it, like, conflicts can happen. No, they don't can happen. It happens. You know, we are all sure that it is
Yeah.
a must. It does happen.
It is
And
inevitable.
it is genuinely inevitable. And
Mhm.
the change in perspective that I wish to bring while doing so many webinars on conflict is that conflicts can be productive. They
Mhm.
can be effective. You know, see, think of it like this. How many times in your own personal relationships you fought with your closest ones, whether it's friends or your partner or your parents, and after the fight, when things have resolved, have you felt a better bond with them? Can you raise your hands of for if everybody is there? Can we look at that number?
Let's see how many of us can contribute or do contribute to this number.
So I can also
I
already
can
see
see
everybody.
so many hands
My
going up.
hand is also raised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So let's understand and let's change the narrative of let's just talk about conflicts. Moving on, let's see what Mario has to say in the workplace front, and
Mhm.
yeah, let's see how we can make it more productive from here.
Well, when it comes to conflicts, like you said, it's inevitable. That's completely true. I would put it at the workplace as a breakdown in communication. So when something happens, and perhaps it could be a work-related issue, it could be a personal issue, it could be issues between colleagues, or probably from a lower to a higher hierarchy. At all given situations, we actually find that once we break down, we are lost. And at that lost given moment, we don't really know what to do. And we're looking for answers. So, like Megha just said, conflicts are, a solution, or rather, a means to a solution,
Mhm.
and thereby they're productive. So, for me, when it comes down to a conflict, I always look at it as a positive and proactive place to find something. Now, I come from the hospitality background. Now, unless a guest complains and says that, I have not gotten a particular service, we don't know. In their room, or probably around the ship, or anything that they have not experienced, we are not likely to know that, there has been a breakdown in communication, or probably service not given to them. Now, that same complaint might be taken negatively at other levels, but to me, it's the foot in the door that I can retain that customer, help that customer have a better experience. Now, unless and until I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, this is the guest and the employee. Now, between employees and leaders also is an opportunity to know that there has been a breakdown in communication. This is the opportunity to get to know why some things have happened, and to better it, and to be able to, use it to make do and put in better processes. So thereby you actually benefit. It might sound very difficult to understand, but when you have been in the place and you are continually doing something like this is when you realize that conflicts are an opportunity rather than
Mhm.
anything negative.
Yeah. I think that's a very unique perspective that you have gotten for us, because the common narrative is that conflicts lead to a lot of messy situations. It's a lot of discomfort. It's not easy to endure the discomfort of knowing that the other person might be upset and it might affect the relationship. But like how you explained that it's a tiny opportunity to maybe work on that relationship better, and it can excel and we can all grow from there, is a mindset that we all can work on, and it can change a lot of perspectives. So I think we are approaching a lot of unlayering of thoughts and learning new things. So I'm very glad that we are having this conversation today. With that, we move on to the next. As we are talking about conflicts, now the next question is that from originating from that debate that whether conflicts are helpful, whether it's not helpful, what are the ways of navigating through a conflict? Because we are saying that it's inevitable, right? And if it's inevitable, then having some strategies to thrive through it can be really, really helpful. So, as we start and as you both talk about these strategies, let's begin with a little bit of polling and interaction about understanding what our participants think about avoiding conflict as a strategy. So, Nishant, can you help us by activating the poll? Let's hear what our participants think regarding avoiding conflict as a strategy. So we have two questions open to the audience for them to answer. One is, do you think avoiding is a good strategy to resolve conflict? Yes or no? Do you still mostly engage in avoidance as a conflict management strategy? Because sometimes theoretically we know that it might not be a great strategy, but we do it anyway. So let's look at what people are saying about it. We will take a few seconds while all of us respond. I would really encourage all of you to participate in this. It helps us keep it lively, interactive, gives us real time data to understanding how we are all thinking together in space. All right, Nishant, can we move on to the results? Because I think we just have two questions and should be done by now. So 75% of us says that no, it's not a right strategy. And wow, a 50-50 split between whether we engage in avoiding it as a conflict management. I think it still holds us in the debate that some of us do it anyway, and some of us maybe are trying to break from that. So, with this data, Megha, over to you. What do you have to direct us regarding this strategy?
Right. So quite interesting, no, that we do understand, we do realize that we shouldn't, engage and indulge in this, but we still do. Uh,
Yeah.
we will look at, it's quite interesting. Like moving on, we'd like to address better ways of handling it, and probably reflecting back as to why we are engaging in avoiding it. But the one thing, I mean, I will try to keep it crisp and informative, in the sense that when we are avoiding a conflict, it doesn't solve anything. The only thing we are doing is we are suppressing how we are, how we are feeling, or the suppressing opportunities, maybe suppressing problem solving, maybe, and we're just not reaching there. And avoiding a conflict has definitely, like, look at research, and research says that it is not good in terms of organization, in terms of personal relationships. And I have seen people uh, having good relationships on pen and paper, but not happy with it, right? Because they have been avoiding conflicts. This is not the right way. Like, life is not all roses all the time. There will be differences of opinions. It is irrational of us to think that there will not be any conflicts. So which is why we started with the narrative that we might have to accept that conflicts will happen, and avoiding it is kind of the first mistake that we do. Yes, at what point in time you want to address it, maybe a question. That's something that can be sorted, that you can think about, especially when I'm talking about personal space. But avoiding it is definitely something that is not encouraged. Yeah, let's see what Mario has to say about it from the workplace front.
You're on mute, Mario.
In the workplace context, at times I think avoidance is kind of helpful. It depends on what the situation it might be and what the results might turn out to be. So, avoiding conflict, perhaps in a natural setting like in a home, a relationship, or sometimes between two partners, may be something that you would want to avoid. But when it is to do with the workplace, I think sometimes it's better to not get into conflicts rather than take into things like that. Now, when it's conflict to resolve, also could be something taken into account. But then the end result is supposed to be taken as priority. So if we are looking at something positive and we're looking at something productive, then perhaps we could take a balance on both of the ideals. Having said so, generically, people do want to have a conflict so that they can resolve it. But at the workplace, it tends to be a little difficult in terms of what my end result will be. So keeping the end result in mind, that would actually change the whole process.
I think I agree to both of you. When it is a very intimate, homely situation, it's beneficial to address it, even though it is a little uncomfortable. But it only helps us grow, remove pressure off the chest. But when it is a workplace scenario, the consequences are very important to be kept in mind, whether it's worth escalating, what are the consequences of waiting, can we give it some time, can we handle it through any other strategies, all those can be explored, and I think coaches and leaders like you can guide them through. And keeping that in manner itself, positivity brings in training sessions for employees, coaches, leaders, for the same, to assist them to understand how different management conflict resolution strategies can be helpful. I would request Apurva or Indira, our business development executives, to drop in the links for those workshops and coaching sessions that we have, so that anybody who is understanding the significance of such training and handling and management can take a look at it and get in touch with us. With that, we'll move on to the next slide, to the next strategy, which is removing personal bias. So I would like to continue this system of first interacting with the participants as we go deeper into this strategy. Nishant, can you activate the poll? Let's hear what people are thinking about how personal bias plays a role in conflicts and conflict management. So the first question that we have is, do you think personal bias leads to conflicts? Yes or no? Second one is, where does personal bias create more misunderstanding? Is it the workplace? Is it the personal relationships, or both? Fairly simple, but a little bit more engagement and data can help us get the conversation started. So requesting you all to give your vote to let us know what you think about it. We can move on to the results. So there is 100% response to whether we think that personal biases lead to conflict, and 100% response to the fact that personal biases create more misunderstandings both at workplace and personal relationships. So that's your prompt, Megha. Take us through it.
Yeah, thank you so much for responding, the audience. Like, thank you so much, audience, for responding and coming to a full, consensus on the fact that yes, personal biases do come in between, and it does, hamper our conflict resolution part as well. So think of it like this. I'm assuming, we all come from the Indian, backdrop, and can we all like maybe we are coming from different parts of the world, and maybe from different cultural backgrounds, but more or less, I'm using a very simple difference. There's a general difference between North India and South India, and I felt the difference in both the places. I've stayed in both the places, and I've felt, I've heard where people will come from a preconceived notion, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Here I'm talking about probably very day-to-day, normal, simple, where I'm dealing with it. But the moment, because conflict is inevitable, right? It's a part of our everyday life. So the moment that comes, that also, so let's say, for example, I had two experiences where my Uber driver didn't behave very well, or let's say didn't make me feel very safe. And now it's very easy for me to probably say that this city's Uber drivers have, made me feel a certain way. Now, third time I am in a situation, I am already loaded with that perception, and this might this might cause a conflict for me, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this way, a very normal, simple, thing that you and me can experience. But this is how my personal bias can contribute into conflict, can contribute to conflict, and therefore keep us from resolving it. So now, if we are talking positively about how do we resolve a personal bias, we'd like to go back to not coming from a judgmental space. Listen to what the other person is. Do not personalize it, right? So
Absolutely.
this is something that these are things that we can inculcate in our practices and just observe. Sometimes maybe in the heat of the moment we do things out of our habit. Makes it's okay, or honestly understandable. But if we go back a little, if we reflect back, trust me, once or twice, if you reflect back into your habits, that's enough to bring a change in your behaviors, especially at these communication patterns, etc. So with that said, yes, this is what how I feel we can work towards removing personal biases while we are trying to deal with conflicts.
Beautiful examples, Megha. I think the way you helped us understand through the examples, it's very eye-opening and very relatable. I think I have lived through that experience, and I have heard friends and colleagues talk about the same, and it's something that happens day in and day out and often contributes to the conflicts. And how you connected it with what we learned earlier in today's conversation is very helpful to ground us and take those small tips and awareness back and apply the same for resolving this personal bias. Mario, what do you think? Your in your experience, personal bias plays a role in conflicts. How do you manage them? Because so many people from different parts of the country or the world come to work in your workplace, and you handle them, you lead them. What would you have to say?
I'm not taking an Uber again. Anyways, the most important thing at the workplace, and when you have a personal bias, I just came into the session and I was interacting with Megha and Shwatadeep, and I just told them I had a little meeting with one of my managers and I've come. Now, this manager was a supervisor earlier,
Mhm.
and now she has a broader perspective when she's moving up. She has been promoted to a temporarily a manager of guest services. But I've got 6 complaints against her in the last 10 days. And yet she's stuck, thinking that she's doing the right thing. Over around 7 days, I've been trying to counsel her, talk to her, tell her that, what you had earlier in terms of the supervisory role, you cannot continue to the higher role. So the thought is there that, I'm okay. I'm a supervisor. I'm okay. I will take the same thing there. Now that bias that she has is causing a big problem to her. On my level, I'm trying to help her, but that already learned faculty that she had in her mind, in her intellect, is blocking her moving upward. Now she has to be in a very, very eased, calmed out role where she has to guide people, not
Mhm.
micromanage. Now, what is stopping her from moving on is her bias. And this is something that she's taking as far as a work bias is concerned. So she's taking the same supervisory role to the manager, or rather slash leader.
Yeah.
That is blocking all her movement and her opening up to being a leader. Now her team is getting mentally stressed out. They're doing hours that are not necessary. They're being blocked out because she does not schedule properly. They don't have enough of trust amongst themselves. Now, see how many things have come out of the thing just
Yeah.
because of a personal bias or a work bias that she carried from some years back, and she's not ready to let go. So, just like the Uber, here she's driving something that's
Yeah.
unnecessary. That's something that's out of play. And she's passing it on as something that's very, very wanted for the team. It's giving that negative vibe. So even if you're trying to put across to her, you don't need to micromanage, she's still stuck on that. So the bias to break even is very, very difficult.
Very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a raging example that you just gave. I think it sums up the whole topic so well. And that's where leaders like you, trainers like you come in and try to kind of help them unpack and shift that perspective, right? So I'm sure a lot more work is pending for leaders like you and experts like Megha. Continuing with our conversation, having the difficult conversation. I think what we were covering, Mario, like how you had to have multiple conversations with her in the past 7 days or 10 days. I'm sure it must not have been easy. So I would like to learn more about navigating that difficulty or discomfort of having important yet unpleasant conversations. But before we jump onto that, we would like to hear from the audience on another poll on this particular topic. So, Nishant, can you project the poll for this slide, please? So the first question that we have is, it's better to protect someone from being hurt than having difficult conversations that disappoint them. Difficult conversations always lead to loss of relationships, hence it's not a good conflict resolution strategy. It's a simple yes no and a true false question. So I would insist all of you to quickly click on the option that you think and you feel is right, you resonate with. You just have to click on your screen using the cursor and let us know what are your thoughts on the same. So we have the results. 33% people are saying that it's better to protect someone from being hurt from the difficult conversation, and indirectly saying that it's better to avoid that. 67% saying is no. And 33% is again saying that difficult conversations lead to loss of relationships. So it's not a good conflict resolution strategy, whereas 67% is saying it's false. I think it's the same group who are staunch believers in both. So interesting perspectives, right? What do you have to say about this, Megha?
Yeah, let's look at this. So I understand where you're coming from, and therefore I have something to share with you. So when we're having a difficult conversation, we are putting across our point of view, and it's difficult because we cannot dismiss the other person's perspective and the
Mhm.
point of view, right?
Yeah.
Which is making it difficult. So, somewhere both parties have to leave their place and come to a third place, probably, which is probably not midways, somewhere here. But that is what's making it uncomfortable. That this is what I want, this is what you can offer, this is what you want, or this is what's going on. But to solve this, we need to come out of our comfort zones, and this is what we need to do. This mostly, okay, again, I will not say not always, but mostly this is what makes the conversation difficult. And the one aspect that that kind of, the pattern, looking at the number of people and number of therapies I've done, and then the experience that I come from, many a times, most of the times, again, I think people are coming from that either aggressive, passive aggressive, or passive communication style, which is where most of the conflict resolution is being stagnant. Whereas if you're having a difficult conversation by being very assertive, this is where the game changes. This is where you're able to resolve a conflict in a very effective manner, right? So I'll just stress on a few points about assertiveness before I hand over it over to Mario. And that is, a few aspects of my assertiveness is, I come from a respectful place, you also come from a respectful place. So just like where my opinions come from my experiences, and they have the same weightage, yours also have the same weightage. So since this is the scenario, let's keep it together and let's come up with a plan. I value you and you value me. The first thing, I value myself,
Yeah.
right? When I'm having a passive communication, I say, I don't value myself. When I'm having an aggressive conversation, I say, I do not value you. But
You. Yeah.
when I'm having an assertive communication, I am communicating that both of us are important.
Yeah.
And since both of us are important, let's talk it out and let's see where the
We
conversation,
can meet.
yes, where we can meet. And this is the best way of having a difficult conversation. And like Mario was saying in the other example, that multiple conversations are sometimes needed. So yes, just because one trial and error didn't work doesn't mean that the technique is ineffective.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
trying to get better at it. Keep trying to be more assertive. Keep trying to come back to the conversation. But don't escalate it into an ugly fight where we are very raw to each other. So coming from a come if when we come from a very assertive place, and when we're communicating from an assertive place, difficult conversations are, I'll not say easy to have, but at the end of the day, you feel more comfortable having them.
I think what I take away from that is I value you and you value me. If this is the mantra, I think it can protect us from not escalating to a stage where it becomes very ugly.
Very well said, Shatudeepa.
So
Very
I think I'm going to be present with that.
yes.
Mario, would you like to continue with the same example? Tell us more on this aspect also, or anything else that you want to offer us.
I actually have very little to say because Megha stole my thunder. No, there is this part about the ego.
Yeah.
So many a times the conversation is all about an ego, and that I am superior to you, or you don't deserve, or things like that. So adding on to it, if you break down the ego, I think the value part becomes so much more important, and it attains a different level of resolving a conflict rather than just sitting down with my point of view. The ego is such because we come from, at least the place that I work with, we come from at least 54 countries, different traditions, cultures, religions. So we're coming from different places. Some come from the city, some come from the village. The amount of variety, the amount of uniqueness that is there in terms of the personality is unsaid. You can't just think about how someone's actually thinking about it. So when you put this across to them that they need to have that difficult conversation, at first there will always be reluctance.
Resistance, yeah.
Yeah, there will be a resistance, there will be a reluctance. There's that part where they don't want to break down the ego. They want to say that I'm better than you.
Yeah.
But necessarily, if it comes down to the value part, and just like Megha put it, I don't really need to add much. But yes, you break down one part of it, and I think there's so much more, and there's so much benefits to have out of that same conflict.
And I think for leaders, especially, to be so mindful that they are sitting on a very important chair, yet they have to be open and they have to be listening to people coming from all sorts of backgrounds, like you mentioned. Not everyone will be mindful about what their body language is. So to keep calm and meet them halfway is a lot of challenge and difficulty, but that's what we are talking about. Living through that difficulty and yet making the conversation possible is our goal here.
Yes, I have almost wanted at sometimes to use super glue on my lips, but it's human nature sometimes that you want to butt in, and at the same time, when the conversation comes in, you want to be less involved and more proactive in listening, and thereby you can dredge out the conflict rather than stretching it and escalating it.
Absolutely. Can't agree more. So, Mario, I think we have a question. Do you want to address it now or wait for the last Q&A section?
Is it from Anju?
Yes. How do you clarify
Anju
your
says,
stance?
yeah.
Yeah.
Anju says, how do you clarify your stance in a difficult conversation that you don't want to operate out of your ego, and how do you invite them to come halfway? So basically, when the ego is involved, as practitioners of practitioners of psychology, we are thinking of humility. We're thinking of aspects where we're going to break down the entire situation. So when something's, you need to get a little more background on conflict. You can't just work with a little information. You need to get a little bit background from both sides of the parties, and thereby you can help and reason. You give them facts. You give them a little bit of situational reasoning. You give them logic, things that would help break down the information such that the understanding comes. And once the understanding comes, then the whole situation becomes a little more easier to put across and to put together in terms of a solution rather than just an argument. Now, when it's a very difficult conversation, you would ask whether it could be continued, or do you want to take a little time out, and thereby giving each other a little space. Now, not necessarily everything needs to be in a snippet, and yes, time is of the essence also. So perhaps over time, over sleeping over some things, that same conversation can have a different outcome. So that could be your halfway. And the ego, like I said, humility. So you start with the humility as a leader, and then you explain, or probably you can even give an example. Thereby, they understand what's happening. You can even put together things to do with the operations, how critical time is, and that the conflict really cannot help. So thereby, such reasonable, alternatives can be offered, and I don't see why it should come into play. The ego is such that the more you feed it, the more it fires up. So
Yeah.
the less you feed it, uh, reason comes into play. Is that good, Anju?
Anju, let us know if that helps you have your doubt clarified. I think Mario summed it up very well. And I mean, what we were discussing at the beginning of the conversation, being mindful, staying present, kindness, not feeding onto the ego, wanting to meet the other person halfway, that itself helps us resolute the difficulty or the problem that we are having in hand. moving on to the next slide, which is clarifying misunderstanding. This is our second last strategy that we are discussing today. Quickly, we can go to the poll, Nishant. I think we are running short of time. I'm sorry that I'm keeping you away. Maybe it's approaching dinner time for a lot of us. We'll try to wrap it up in the next 10 to 15 minutes max. So, wanting to clear up a misunderstanding is often misunderstood as being needy. So, this need for individuals to let's go ahead and clarify misunderstanding can be perceived as neediness. I hear especially the Gen Zs or the freshers thinking that, oh, if I want to show more interest in sorting problem, then the other person might think that I'm emotionally more clingy. So, better not do that. So, do you think it is the same way? Do let us know in this polling question. The second question is it's better to pretend everything is normal even when a misunderstanding is hanging in the air. So I think a lot of us do that. Sometimes it just continues that way and things get cold and eventually we lose touch with each other. Sometimes we even regret that what if we had kind of touched base when things were not so cold also. So please let us know what is it that you think. 100% says that yes, it might, 100% says that it's false, that no, wanting to clear up misunderstanding is not perceived as being needy. And 50-50 debated response on better to pretend that everything is normal even though it's not. Some people say that it's not okay. Some people say that it's sometimes okay. So let's take it up from there, Megha.
Okay, so uh, I'm let's look at it in this way that okay, so one thing for sure, I understand that the audience is at the right page where they say that understand trying to clear misunderstanding is not coming across as needy.
Hmm.
Fair enough. Let me tell you this, even if it is perceived as needy, we should still try to do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because we cannot function from someone else's perspective. Okay, we
absolutely.
and clarity is very, very basic, you know.
Hmm.
You need to know, see, look at when we don't have clarity, we don't function very well. Although, as much as uncertainty is inevitable, we still are chasing certainty. You know, human brains, we want predictability around us. We want similar things around us. So, not just similar things, but predictable things. We need to understand, we need to know, because when we know, our brains can plan and function in the same move in a aligned way, right? So that's a very basic requirement for for you to exist as an individual. So definitely, I have seen people, relationships go bad because of misunderstandings, because they are not willing to talk about it, not willing to, work on it. And conflicts have gone on for 10 to 12 years.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
after clarifying things, things have gone back to normal,
yes,
right? I'll not say normal. I think I'll say that the bond has been better.
better.
So clarifying misunderstandings is something that is, you know, so many a times we don't know that there's a misunderstanding. I think I'm talking about things very practical and very, ground level. If that is happening, again, going back to asking questions, you know, or maybe you trying to talk, and you trying to share that this happened, and then taking it forward. And like, again, when you communicate, try to use more, I feel this way when this happened, or, like, instead of saying, you made me feel like this, or you made me, you insulted me, or things like this, things that can be very uh, targeting. Instead of using such claims, such statements, we can use things like, when you approached this in this manner, I felt like this.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
a much, much easier way to communicate, and a better way of clarifying your misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether, uh, you know, uh, this is where I was. So let's say someone said this, but then they don't know where they're coming from. What's their intention? So this is a place where we can have the conversation and we can talk about, this is where I was coming from. This is where this person is coming from. And most of the times, people are not coming from an intention of hurting you. They are coming from an intention of either trying to, they're probably, not understanding your perspective, or certain things like that.
But they just
But
want to be more heard, be more,
yes,
feel more seen.
right, right.
That's a need that comes up a lot of times.
Right, we just want to be seen. Maybe they have, so the point is that instead of suppressing that hurt, instead of letting it dwell, instead of letting it build on, especially with relationships, what we see is one small mistake, and it's just so easy, that whole confirmation bias, that whole all those things just keep piling up, the halo effect in the wrong way, where we keep blaming the person, we keep judging the person, and we keep the misunderstanding is just very easy to light up. So instead of that, if we clear out the misunderstandings, it is much easier for us to navigate. Let's look at the negative part also. Let's say you want to clear out the misunderstanding, and you do understand that the person is not coming from an intention which is aligned with yours. Now you also have a better understanding of where you want to take this relationship, whether
Yeah.
you want to be in a relationship, or what sort of relationship you want to be with this person.
And I think that brings us to the next strategy over here, which is the collaboration. When we clear the misunderstanding, we come on the same page, we set goals together. What kind of relationship do we want to have? I would like to apologize to Mario that I could not take his perspective in the previous topic, as we're running out of time. And that's why I would like to, open the door for this particular slide and conversation directly to him, and want him to kind of enlighten us on this.
No worries, Satyadeep. The more important thing is actually Megha summed it up very nicely. So I really didn't need to put too much input in there. What could also happen by keeping things at the back of your head, you're also developing something in terms of physiological stress,
Yeah.
and that's not something that's really wanted. That same stress develops into sickness, and probably more of the unknown causes to of your probably anything that's pain, back pain, and things that it converts into a lot of physiological things. Coming down from there to encouraging collaboration, this is the most important part, where we need to actually drown out all the conflict. And when I say drown out, I'm actually trying to put across, um, if you take a visual, you write on the sand and a wave comes and takes it away. What do you see? There's nothing. There's
Yeah.
no writing anymore. So same way, if you keep that misunderstanding and the wave doesn't come, then what? That sort of thing is also with the encouraging collaboration. So the more you encourage people to remove the misunderstandings, the
Mm-hmm.
collaboration comes easily. It's as simple as that. I would like to have Megha say something about it.
Thank you so much, Mario. You prompted it very rightly, that I'll try to take us through how exactly collaboration works. So I have had this example where, I remember a teenager walk in and say that, this person has been bullying me, and this has been happening. And a couple of days later, like probably 2 3 sessions later, she comes up to me and says, my teacher is so bad, she's paired me with this person in a particular project, and I'm ruined now. My exams, my rank is ruined, and this person will not help me, and this and that. And I was like, okay, be patient, let's take one day at a time, let's take one session at a time. What are your to-do lists? And then we sorted them out, and in a couple of sessions, this person was working with the other person, who probably they had conflicts initially and they didn't do well, and then they ended up making an amazing project which probably got ranked, as much as
Yeah.
I remember, that they ended up doing it very well. And more than just the project doing very well, I was very happy with how my client ended up solving an intrapersonal situation, where
Yeah.
they had difference of opinions, but they were okay to accept the other person and work with the other person despite the differences of opinions, and still make something that is greater than me. So
Yeah.
this is what is was really beautiful for me, like especially, I was inspired with how my client that time handled
Absolutely.
the
The
situation.
patience, the greater than me approach, I think the way you guided your client and the way eventually they also understood is something that we all can get inspired by.
Yes, and that is what I'd like to draw. Like that's from there, I'd like to draw an inspiration for collaboration. See, at the end of the day, in our office also, if we look around us, so many people are having conflicts, and this and that is happening. And I was like, oh, he said this over the mail. Oh, he said this. This is how he reacted, or this is how she reacted. But then we still get the company going, right? We still do what we are supposed to do, and we still collaborate when we have to collaborate. So that is just beautiful, like I think that is I am passionately driven towards human behaviors, that we have no idea where we are going, and
What
we
we
are
can
less.
create.
Yeah.
What we can create, the kind of power that we have to
Yes.
create
And
things through
each one
collaboration.
of us, when we sit down, we all feel like we are a mess. But the great things
Yeah.
that we are doing as humanity, is just so beautiful. So, which is where comes the idea of encouraging collaboration in terms with respect to resolving conflicts. Yes, yes, there will be difference of opinions. Yes, please use assertive communication. Please, uh, every individual, every living person is it is worth respectful, right? It is definitely required that we take it, that we you know that we try it, at least try it, try to collaborate and see how it goes. That's how I'd like to wrap up.
I think that just puts the entire thing very beautifully together. We also have assertiveness communication as a different slide, but I think you have already kind of covered it with a lot of anecdotes and your experiences, the I statements, and I value you, value me kind of takeaways and mantras. So I think we have enough information over there. Why don't we wrap up with the boundary making slide as a last slide for today, and something that you both would like to talk about as the last strategy?
Right. So last, I'll just wrap it up very crisply. I'll not say a lot, but boundary setting. See, all through when we were talking about resolving conflicts, the one thing that the common question, the theme of the question that came up was, like we were asking about what if the other person doesn't want to come midways?
Yeah.
Then don't try to solve that conflict. Then you cannot solve that conflict. Please understand, right? I'm not talking about the organizational part. I'm talking about the personal part. Personally, there's no liability. We don't have liability. All the liability is there in our heads, right? The
Mm-hmm.
first responsibility and liability that you have is towards your own self, right? If
Yeah.
someone is hampering your boundaries, if someone is encroaching your boundaries, you have the right to step up and to put your boundaries up, that no, this is not going to happen, right? And that can be as simple as, if I want to sleep at a certain time, I want to sleep, I don't want to get on a call and speak to you. It doesn't mean I'm a bad friend, or I'm a bad partner, or I'm a bad daughter, or a daughter-in-law, or whatever,
Absolutely.
right? So it can start with something as small as this and go into very complex things. Sometimes we do things out of love, where there's so much confusion, and boundaries is like in itself is something that I can talk about for hours together. So maybe we can
So
do
true.
another webinar about it,
Yes,
in a couple
yes.
of weeks time. But that's what I'd like to start with about boundaries, that sometimes while we're doing all these things, we always have to remember that the most important part of assertiveness is, I respect myself. So
Yeah.
you have to keep respecting yourself, and please do not forget that you're an authentic individual, just like the other person is. So both, we don't have to forget. We cannot forget that we are one, and we cannot forget that the other person is one.
I think even though we talked a lot about, approach difficult conversations, do not avoid it, try to meet halfway, address the misunderstanding, clear it out. But an essential component to remember is that you come first. So even after showing that effort and putting in those first steps, if there is not enough reciprocation and that is taking a toll on your mental health, boundaries is the way to go.
True.
Right. So, Mario, what do you think? How do you recommend this can be used in the workplace?
I think most of us have traveled in an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
So when the air hostess just starts off, what does she say? Put your mask on and then help somebody else.
Right.
So
Wear your
pretty much the
oxygen mask
same.
before helping someone else.
Exactly. So pretty much the same oxygen here.
Mm-hmm.
And the new HR, the new concept of HR also starts with the self. So regardless of whether it's a personalized relationship or it's something at work, we have moved on. It's no
Yeah.
longer the old concept of, the stick and discipline. Now it's also moving to the person and the individual, wherein we do not hurt, neither do we take anything away. Now, when you talk about limits, that's what we're actually putting in place,
Mm-hmm.
protecting personal time, integrity, and being able to help the individual stand up for themselves. So, yes, boundaries are necessary, but also within reason.
Absolutely. So that brings us towards the end of this very insightful session. Very quick questions, if we have any, I would like to take them now. Quickly, if you have any questions. If you think typing is too much, just raise your hand. We will unmute you. While you do that, Nishant, can you activate the feedback questions? We would like to hear from you about how we did, what can we do better. Just scroll down. We have 5 quick questions. Your responses really matter a lot to enhance us and bring in much more interesting topics and engage you in more insightful sessions. While you do that, you can take a look at our social handles. Our business development executives have dropped in their email IDs and links through which you can reach out to Positivity. Through today's webinar, we understood what is the essence and importance of guiding leaders and employees to communicate well, to resolve conflict well. And of course, there are great leaders like Mario himself who guide their employees to the best. But if we partner up with organizations who provide such services very professionally, consultants like Megha, come on board and help us build that. So that's something that we would like to offer if you are interested further. And if any further questions, because of dearth of time, we couldn't take, quickly scan this QR and you can drop in your questions to us. We will personally get back to you and answer your questions. So that'll be all from my side. Thank you, Mario and Megha, for taking out your valuable time from your busy schedule to join us and address us today. It was lovely to have you both with us.
It was a lovely
Sure.
evening with a lovely conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Glad
much.
being a part of this.
Great. So before we part today, I would like to inform all of you to just keep checking our webinar pages. Multiple topics have gone up already. You can register for them and see you for the next one on 7th February. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.